Today, what we are going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about our virtual worlds. Because right now we are isolated from one another, we are social distancing, and we're not touching anybody as well. And so a big way of our connection to this world right now is through the internet, through technology. And that's a big way of how we're going to be able to stay connected to one another. And so this is a very different concept to not be physically with people. And so today I brought in one of my guests, which is another counselor here at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tarrant County, Miss Laura Benaja, and she is right here.
Hello.
Hi, Laura. How can we have a positive relationship with technology and social media during this time?
Yeah, so my kind of list of pointers would be take stock of how you are using your social media. It's really just about being mindful, meaning reflecting on how you're using it, aware of how you're using it. Do you know how much time you're spending on your social media each day? If not, pay attention and start paying attention to how do you feel while you're using it, how do you feel afterwards, and don't be afraid to make changes and ask yourself too, like, what role do I want this to play in my life? Do I want to use it as a creative outlet? Do I want to use it to connect with my friends? And being intentional in that way, as opposed to, oh, I'm just bored, so I'm just going to spend an hour on social media, and who knows how it's going to affect my headspace. When you're intentional about it and you check in with yourself and you're flexible, you're able to have a balanced relationship with it and use it in ways that are meeting your needs as a person and, helping your relationships instead of hurting them or hurting your mental health.
Yeah. So on the flip side, what is it? How would we know if we're having an unhealthy relationship with our with technology and social media during this time?
Yeah, that's kind of just basically the opposite. Again, it takes reflection and some kind of intentional self-awareness. But if you find that you often are in a negative headspace when you are using your social media or afterwards, or you find that you feel that kind of addicted flavor to it of like checking it very impulsively or obsessively, I don't know, that kind of thing. That's all I can think to say. Do you have any maybe tips on that as far as the unhealthy part?
I think that because the thing is this, I think we're not saying that, like, even during this time, that social media should be a replacement for, having quality relationships or like wanting to see people in person. I think that's something that we're always going to need. I think that whenever we're allowing it to affect our moods or be able to validate us in a way, I think that because I think that it can go in different ways each and every single day. And so I think kind of like what you talked about, just practicing our awareness, really knowing our feelings going into what we're writing, knowing our feelings into how we're receiving, the information and everything. And I think that's just the most important thing to realize is to be able to kind of have that awareness of yourselves and knowing that this ultimately social media is not a replacement for connecting with people, because you can do it. You can connect with people other ways. You can still call people, text people. You can use other platforms as well to video conference people as well.
Yeah, I really like what you said. That inspired me. Just what you said about it not being a replacement, and that made me think of, yeah, that's right. Like, the healthiest way is like, okay, you can use your social media, it can enrich your life, it can, but to know that you are still a whole person outside of your social media, and if everything crashed tomorrow and you didn't have any of your accounts, to have that knowledge that you still are a whole person and you could still have a self-esteem and a self-worth outside of that. I think that's kind of a healthy marker, is like check in with yourself. Like, if I didn't have this, would I still feel okay? And if the answer is no, then you might want to examine some things.
And social media can be an outlet for us to express our thoughts and feelings. We can put ourselves out there, but at the same time, that can also make us a little bit vulnerable to feedback. And so, whenever we get, say, like a friend or even some troll tries to shame us for why we're sharing what we're sharing, how do we handle that?
Yeah, that is an awesome question. And I was gonna say, especially for kids out there who, might not have as much experience with bullies or, socially in the world, but honestly, it can be just as hard for adults to handle. It really can, especially when you get people with, we all know by now that phenomenon of, being behind the screen. Sometimes people feel emboldened to be, blunt or to be rude or, quite frankly, even hateful in a way that they wouldn't be brave enough to be in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, how to deal with that, definitely an important question. My kind of little tidbit of advice that, again, it's not like anybody is obligated to take my advice, but if you find yourself in a situation where, like, oh my goodness, like what did this person just say, and you're having an emotional reaction, what I try to do is, like, okay, first of all, pause, take stock of the situation. You don't have to respond immediately. You can take a minute to think, or, take a day or a week or whatever. And I just think about the fact that we have a lot of choice in that situation. You do not have to engage in somebody else's negative feedback or somebody being a troll. If it's somebody that is important to you, that's close to you in your life, that is giving you negative feedback on your whatever post you made or whatever, it could be worth it to, like, have a real talk with them about it. Not necessarily commenting back, but be asking, hey, could we talk on the phone for a little bit at some point or something, and just letting them know, like, hey, like, that was kind of hurtful, but I care about our friendship. Could we talk about that? But if they're just somebody who you really are not even in their circle or anything, like, I would just encourage people, don't be afraid to ignore, block. We're under no obligation to put ourselves in a negative emotional environment through our social media, just because other people are trying to be that way.
Yeah, and I agree with you, like, and with all those points. I think that sometimes a really hard decision to make is to block somebody or to unfriend somebody because, don't want to be mean, or maybe we're taking it the wrong way or something like that. But I think you're right. Like, I think you got to really determine how it's affecting you and your mental health, and whether it's the best thing for you as well. Because sometimes we have to make tough decisions like that. And I know that we don't have a ton of control, but we can, in some ways, take control of our social media in that way, to where we can choose to block people or remove people and just not have that, and just not allow it to get to us.
Right. And like you're saying, if you don't want to be mean, or you don't want to just burn bridges either, but there are intermediate steps, and especially if it's somebody that actually is in your life, it might be worth, respectfully responding and seeing how that goes, because maybe they'll take the feedback. But if they don't, and it becomes a pattern, then if there's somebody that you care about that relationship, the best idea would be try to address it in a phone call, in person, something that actually is more meaningful, and not just like in a public space, and try to work through it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, if all else fails though, and you feel like you did your due diligence and you tried to be respectful and make it work, and they're not respecting your boundaries, that's when we have those block buttons and unfollow and things like that.
Yeah, and also reporting. We can report it to, whichever site we're using if it's really extreme as well.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say before we sign out?
No, just keep being safe, keep checking in with yourself. Don't put too much pressure, and we're just gonna get through it.
Yeah, great words. Yes. We miss you guys, and man, we can't wait to see you guys again soon. All right, but between then, stay safe and be healthy and be kind to one another. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.